Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone for our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. And we'd like to begin by offering our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharine Nivisesa Sunyavadi Pasacha Desatarine. And to each other. Pancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnanebhyo namo namaha. So this week we're gonna read chapter 59 entitled The Deliverance of the Demon Bhaumasura. And we're gonna pick up from what we left last week, which is page 5 to 6 from this edition. When Lord Krishna heard the prayers of Mother Earth, he immediately assured her of immunity from all fearful situations. He said to Bhagadatta, "Don't be afraid." Then he entered the palace of Bhaumasura, which was equipped with all kinds of opulences. In the palace of Bhaumasura, Lord Krishna saw 16,100 young princesses, which had been kidnapped and held captive there. When the princesses saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna enter the palace, they immediately became captivated by the beauty of the Lord and prayed for his causeless mercy. Within their minds, they decided to accept Lord Krishna as their husband without hesitation. Each one of them prayed to Providence that Krishna might become her husband. Sincerely and seriously, they offered their hearts to the lotus feet of Krishna with an unalloyed devotional attitude. As the super soul in everyone's heart, Krishna could understand their uncontaminated desire, and he agreed to accept them as his wives. Thus he arranged for suitable garments and ornaments for them, and each of them, seated on a palanquin, was dispatched to Dwaraka city. Krishna also collected unlimited wealth from the palace, a treasure of chariots, horses, jewels, and so on. He took from the palace 50 white elephants, each with 4 tusks, and all of them were dispatched to Dwaraka.
After this incident, Lord Krishna and Satyabhama entered Amaravati, the capital city of the heavenly planets, and they immediately entered the palace of King Indra and his wife Sachidevi, who welcomed them. Krishna then presented Indra with the earrings of Aditi. When Krishna and Satyabhama were returning from the capital city of Indra, Satyabhama remembered Krishna's promise to give her a parijat tree. Taking the opportunity of having come to the heavenly kingdom, she uprooted a parijat tree and placed it on the back of Garuda. Once Narada had taken a parijat flower and presented it to Krishna's senior wife, Sri Rukmini Devi. On account of this, Satyabhama had developed an inferiority complex. She also wanted such a flower from Krishna. Krishna could understand the competitive womanly nature of his co-wives, and he had smiled. He had immediately asked Satyabhama, "Why are you asking for only one flower? I would like to give you a whole tree of parijat flowers."
Actually, Krishna had purposely taken his wife Satyabhama with him so that he could collect the parijata with her own hand. But the denizens of the heavenly planets, including Indra, were very irritated. Without the permission, Satyabhama had uprooted a parijata tree, which is not to be found on the earth planet. Indra, along with other demigods, offered opposition to Krishna and Satyabhama for taking away the tree. But in order to please his favorite wife Satyabhama, Krishna became determined and adamant. So there was a fight between the demigods and Krishna. As usual, Krishna came out victorious and he triumphantly brought the Parijata tree chosen by his wife to this earth planet, to Dwarka. After this, the tree was installed in the palace garden of Satyabhama. On account of this extraordinary tree, the garden house of Satyabhama became extraordinarily beautiful. As the Parijata tree came down to the earthly planet, the fragrance of its flowers also came down, and the celestial drones migrated to this earth in search of their fragrance and honey.
King Indra's behavior towards Krishna was not very much appreciated by great sages like Sukadeva Goswami. Out of his causeless mercy, Krishna had gone to the heavenly kingdom, Amarvatya, to present King Indra with his mother's earrings, which had been lost to Bhaumasura, and Indra had been very glad to receive them. But with the Parijata tree from the heavenly kingdom was taken by Krishna, Indra had fought for him. This was self-interest on the part of Indra. He had offered his prayers, tipping down his head to the lotus feet of Krishna. But as soon as his purpose had been served, he became a different creature. That is the way of the dealings of materialistic men. Materialistic men are always interested in their own profit. For this purpose, they can offer any kind of respect to anyone. But when their personal interest is over, they are no longer friends. The selfish nature is found not only among the richer class of men on this planet, but even in personalities like Indra and other demigods. Too much wealth makes a man selfish. A selfish man is not prepared to take to Krishna consciousness and is condemned by great devotees like Sukadeva Goswami. In other words, possession of too many worldly riches is a disqualification for advancement in Krishna consciousness.
After defeating Indra, Krishna arranged to marry the 16,100 girls brought from the custody of Bhaumasura by expanding himself into 16,100 forms. He simultaneously married all in different palaces at the same auspicious moment. He thus established the truth of Krishna, and no one else is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is nothing impossible for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is all powerful, omnipresent, and imperishable, and so there is nothing wonderful in this pastime. All the palaces of the more than 16,000 queens of Krishna were filled with suitable gardens, furniture, and other paraphernalia, to which there is no parallel in this world. There is no exaggeration in this story from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The queens of Krishna were all expansions of Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmiji. Krishna lived with them in different palaces, and he treated them the exact same way an ordinary man treats his wife.
We should always remember that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was playing exactly like a human being. Although he showed his extraordinary opulences by simultaneously marrying more than 16,000 wives in more than 16,000 palaces, he behaved with them just like an ordinary man, and he strictly followed the relationship between husband and wife required in ordinary homes. Therefore, it is very difficult to understand the characteristics of the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead. Even demigods like Brahma are unable to probe into the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The wives of Krishna were so fortunate that they got the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their husband, although their husband's personality was unknown even to Brahma and the other demigods.
In their dealings as husband and wife, Krishna and his queens would smile, talk, joke, embrace, and so on, and their conjugal relationship ever increasingly developed. In this way, Krishna and the queens enjoyed transcendental happiness in their household life. Although each and every queen had thousands of maidservants engaged for her service, the queens were all personally attentive to serving Krishna. Each one of them used to receive Krishna personally when he entered the palace. They engaged in seating him on a nice couch, worshipping him with all kinds of paraphernalia, washing his lotus feet with Ganges water, offering him betel nuts, and massaging his legs. In this way, they gave him relief from the fatigue he felt after being away from home. They fanned him nicely, offered him fragrant essential floral oil, decorated him with flower garlands, dressed his hair, asked him to lie down to take rest, bathed him personally, and fed him plateable dishes. Each queen did all these things herself and did not wait for the maidservants. In other words, Krishna and his different queens displayed on this earth an ideal household life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 59th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of the demon Bhaumasura.
Chapter 16. Talks between Krishna and Rukmini. Once upon a time, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bestower of all knowledge upon all living entities, from Brahma to the insignificant ant, was sitting in the bedroom of Rukmini, who was engaged in the service of the Lord, along with her assistant maidservants. Krishna was sitting on the bedstead of Rukmini, and the maidservants were fanning him with chamaras. Lord Krishna's dealings with Rukmini as a perfect husband are a perfect manifestation of the supreme perfection of the personality of Godhead. There are many philosophers who propound a concept of the absolute truth in which God cannot do this or that. They deny the incarnation of God, or the supreme absolute truth in human form. But actually the fact is different. God cannot be subject to our imperfect sensual activities. He is the all-powerful, omnipresent power personality of Godhead, and by his supreme will he can not only create, maintain, and annihilate the whole cosmic manifestation, but also descend as an ordinary human being to execute the highest mission.
As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, whenever there are discrepancies in the discharge of human occupational duties, he descends. He is not forced to appear by any external agency, but he descends by his own internal potency in order to re-establish the standard functions of human activities and simultaneously annihilate the disturbing elements in the progressive march of human civilization. In accordance with this principle of the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he descended in his eternal form as Krishna, Sri Krishna in the dynasty of the Yadus.
The palaces of Rukmini was wonderfully furnished. Hanging from the ceiling were many canopies with laces bedecked with pearl garlands, and the whole palace was illuminated by the effulgence of valuable jewels. There were many flower groves of Malika and Chameli, which are considered the most fragrant flowers in India. There were many clusters of these plants with the blooming flowers and chanting the beauty of the palace. And because of the exquisite fragrance of flowers, the little groups of humming bees gather around the tree, and at night the pleasing moonshine glittered through the network of holes in the windows. There were many heavily flowered trees of parijat, and a mild wind stirred the fragrance of the flowers all around. Incense burned within the walls of the palace, and a fragrant smoke leaked out the window shutters. Within the rooms were mattresses covered with white bedsheets, and beddings was as soft as white as milk foam. In this situation, Lord Krishna sat very comfortably and enjoyed the service of Rukmini, who was assisted by her maidservants.
Rukmini was very eager to get the opportunity to serve her husband, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She therefore wanted to serve the Lord personally and took the handle of the chamara from the hand of a maidservant and began to move the fan. The handle of the chamara was made of gold and bedecked with valuable jewels, and it became more beautiful when taken by Rukmini, because all of her fingers were beautifully set with jeweled rings. Her legs were decorated with jewels ankle bells, which rang very softly between the pleats of her sari. Rukmini's raised breasts were smeared with kumkum and saffron. Thus her beauty was enhanced by the reflection of the reddish color emanating from her covered breasts. Her high hips were decorated with jewels lace girdle, and a locket of great effulgence hung on her neck. Above all, because she was engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, although at the time she was old enough to have grown-up sons, her beautiful body was beyond compare in the three worlds. When we take account of her beautiful face, it appears that the curling hair on her head, the beautiful earrings on her ears, her smiling mouth, and her necklace of gold all combined to shower rains of nectar, and thus it was definitely proved that Rukmini was none other than the original goddess of fortune, who is always engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Narayan.
The pastime of Krishna and Rukmini in Dwarka are accepted by great authorities as manifestations of those of Narayan and Lakshmi, which are of an exalted opulence. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan are simple and rural, distinguished from the polished urban characteristics of those of Dwarka. The characteristics of Rukmini were unusually bright, and Krishna was very much satisfied with her behavior. Krishna had experienced that when Rukmini was offered her parijat flower by Narada Muni, Satyabhama had become envious of her co-wife and had immediately demanded a similar flower from Krishna. In fact, she could not be pacified until she was promised the whole tree, and Krishna actually fulfilled his promise. He brought the tree down to the earth planet from the heavenly kingdom. After this episode, Krishna expected that because Satyabhama had been rewarded with a full tree of parijat, Rukmini would also demand something. Rukmini didn't mention anything of the incidents, however, for she was grave and simply satisfied in her service. Krishna wanted to see her a bit irritated, and therefore he schemed to see the beautiful face of Rukmini in an irritated condition. Although Krishna had more than 16,100 wives, he used to behave with each of them with familiar affection. He would create a particular situation between himself and his wife, in which the wife would criticize him in the irritation of love, and Krishna would enjoy this. In this case, because Krishna could not find any fault with Rukmini, for she was very grave and always engaged in his service, he smilingly, in great love, began to speak to her, just to provoke her loving anger.
Rukmini was the daughter of Bhishmaka, a powerful king. Thus Krishna did not address her as Rukmini. He addressed her this time as the princess. My dear princess, it is very surprising. Many great personalities in the royal order wanted to marry you. Although not all of them were kings, all possessed the opulence and riches of the kingly order. They were well behaved, learned, famous among kings, beautiful in their bodily features and personal qualifications, liberal, very powerful in strength and advanced in every respect. They were not unfit in any way, and over and above that, your father and your brother had no objection to such a marriage. On the contrary, they gave their word of honor that you would be married with Shishupal. Indeed, the marriage was sanctioned by both your parents. Shishupal was a great king and was so lusty and mad after your beauty that if he had married you, I think he would always have remained with you just like your faithful servant. In comparison to Shishupal, with his personal qualities, I am nothing, and you may personally realize it. I am surprised that you rejected the marriage with Shishupal and accepted me, who am inferior in comparison to Shishupal. I think myself completely unfit to be your husband because you are so beautiful, sober, grave and exalted. May I inquire from you the reason that induced you to accept me? Now, of course, I may address you as my beautiful wife, but still I may inform you of my actual position, that I am inferior to all those princes who wanted to marry you.
First of all, you may know that I was so much afraid of Jarasandha that I could not dare to live on the land, and thus I have constructed this house within the water of the sea. It is not my business to disclose this secret to others, but you must know that I am not very heroic. I am a coward and I am afraid of them. Still, I am not safe because all the great kings of the land are inimical to me. I have personally created this inimical feeling by fighting with them in many ways. Another fault is that although I am on the throne of Dwaraka, I have no immediate claim. Although I got a kingdom by killing my maternal uncle Kamsa, the kingdom was to go to my grandfather. So actually, I have no possession of a kingdom. Besides that, I have no fixed aim in life. People cannot understand me very well. What is the ultimate goal of my life? They know very well that I was cowherd boy in Vrindavana. People expected that I would follow the footsteps of my foster father Nanda Maharaja and be faithful to Srimati Radharani and all her friends in the village of Vrindavana. But all of a sudden I left them. I wanted to become a famous prince. Still I could not have any kingdom, nor could I rule as a prince. People are bewildered about my ultimate goal of life. They do not know whether I am a cowherd boy or a prince, whether I am the son of Nanda Maharaja or the son of Vasudeva. Because I have no fixed aim in life, people may call me a vagabond. Therefore, I am surprised that you could select such a vagabond husband.
Besides this, I am not very much polished, even in social etiquette. A person should be satisfied with one wife, but you see that I have married many times, and I have many more than 16,000 wives. I cannot please all of them as a polished husband. My behavior with them is not very nice, and I know that you are very conscious of it. I sometimes create a situation with my wives which is not very happy. Because I was trained in a village in my childhood, I am not well acquainted with the etiquette of urban life. I do not know the way to please a wife with nice words and behavior. And from practical experience, it is found that any woman who follows my way or becomes attracted to me is ultimately left to cry for the rest of her life. In Vrindavan, many gopis were attracted to me, and now I have left them, and they are living but are simply crying for me in separation. I have heard from Akrura and Uddhava that since I left Vrindavan, all my cowherd boy friends, the gopis and Radharani, and my foster father, Nanda Maharaj, are simply crying constantly for me. I have left Vrindavan for good and am now engaged with the queens of Dwarka, but I am not well behaved with any of you. So you can easily understand that I have no steadiness of character. I am not very reliable husband. The net result of being attracted to me is to acquire a life of bereavement only.
My dear beautiful princess, you may also know that I am always penniless. Just after my birth, I carried penniless to the house of Nanda Maharaj, and I was raised just like a cowherd boy. Although my foster father possessed many hundreds of thousands of cows, I was not the proprietor of even one of them. I was simply entrusted with taking care of them and tending them, but I was not the proprietor. Here also, I am not the proprietor of anything. I am always penniless. There is no cause to lament for such penniless condition. I possessed nothing in the past, so why should I lament that I do not possess anything at the present? You may know also that my devotees are not very opulent. They are also very poor in the worldly goods. Persons who are very rich, possessing worldly wealth, are not interested in devotion to me or Krishna consciousness. On the contrary, when a person becomes penniless, whether by force or by circumstance, he may become interested in me if he gets the proper opportunity. Persons who are proud of their riches, even if they're offered association with my devotees, do not take advantage of consciousness of me. In other words, the poorer class of men may have some interest in me, but rich men have no interest. I think therefore that your selection of me was not very intelligent. You appear very intelligent, trained by your father and brother, but ultimately you have made a great mistake in selecting your life's companion.
But there is no harm. The mistake can still be rectified, and it is better late than never. You are at liberty to select a suitable husband who is actually an equal to you in opulence, family, tradition, wealth, beauty, education, in all respects. Whatever mistake you may have made may be forgotten. Now you may chalk out your own lucrative path of life. Usually, a person does not establish a marital relationship with a person who is either higher or lower than his position. My dear daughter of the king of Vidarbha, I think you did not consider very sagaciously before your marriage. Thus, you made a wrong selection by choosing me as your husband. You mistakenly heard about my having very exalted character, although factually I was nothing more than a beggar. Without seeing me and my actual position, simply by hearing about me, you selected me as your husband. That was not very rightly done. Therefore, since it is better late than never, I advise you to now select one of the great Kshatriya princes and accept him as your life's companion, and you may reject me.
Krishna was proposing that Rukmini divorce him at a time when Rukmini already had many grown-up children. Therefore, Krishna's whole proposition appeared to be something unexpected because according to the Vedic culture, there was no such thing as separation of husband and wife by divorce, nor was it possible for Rukmini to choose a new husband at her advanced age when she had many married sons. To Rukmini, every one of Krishna's proposals appeared crazy, and she was surprised that Krishna could say such things. Simply as she was, her anxiety was increasing more and more at the thought of separation from Krishna.
Krishna continued, "After all, you have to prepare yourself for your next life. I therefore advise that you select someone who can help you in both this life and the next, for I am completely unable to help you. My dear beautiful princess, you know that all the members of the princely order, including Shishupal, Shalva, Jarasan, Dantavakra, and even your elder brother Rukmi, are my enemies. They do not like me at all. They hate me from the cores of their hearts. All these princes were very much puffed up on their worldly possessions and did not care a fig for anyone who came before them. In order to teach them some lessons, I agreed to kidnap you according to your desire. Otherwise, I actually have no love for you, although you love me even before the marriage. As I have already explained, I am not very much interested in family life or love between husband and wife. By nature, I am not very fond of family life, wife, children, home, and opulences. As my devotees are always neglectful, all of these worldly possessions, I am also like that. Actually, I am interested in self-realization. That gives me pleasure, and not this family life." After submitting his statement, Lord Krishna suddenly stopped.
The great authority Sukadeva Goswami remarked that Krishna almost always passed his time with Rukmini, and Rukmini was a bit proud to be so fortunate that Krishna never left her even for a moment. Krishna, however, does not like any of his devotees to be proud. As soon as a devotee becomes so, by some tactic he cuts down that pride. In this case also Krishna said that many things which were hard for Rukmini to hear. She could only conclude that although she was proud of her position, Krishna could be separated from her at any moment.
Rukmini was conscious that her husband was not an ordinary human being. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of the three worlds. By the way he was speaking, she was afraid of being separated from the Lord, for she has never heard such a harsh words from Krishna before. Thus she became perplexed with fear of separation, and her heart began to activate. Without replying to the words of Krishna's statement, she simply cried in a great anxiety, as if drowning in an ocean of grief. She silently scratched the floor with her toenail, which reflected reddish light on the floor. The tears from her eyes mixed with the black cosmetic ointment from her eyelids and dropped down, washing the kumkum and saffron from her breast. Choked up on account of great anxiety, unable to speak even a word, she kept her head down and remained standing just like a stick. Due to extremely painful fear and lamentation, she lost all her powers of reason and became weak. Her body losing so much weight that bangles on her wrist became slack. The charmer which she was serving Krishna immediately fell from her hand. Her brain and memory became puzzled, and she lost consciousness. The nicely combed hair on her head scattered here and there, and she fell down straight, like a banana tree cut down by the whirlwind.
Lord Krishna immediately realized that Rukmini had not taken his words in a joking spirit. She had taken them very seriously, and in her extreme anxiety over immediate separation from him, she had fallen into this condition. Lord Krishna is naturally very affectionate toward his devotees, and when he saw Rukmini's condition, his heart immediately softened. At once he became merciful to her. The relationship between Rukmini and Krishna was like that between Lakshmi and Narayan. Therefore, Krishna appeared before Rukmini in his four-handed manifestation of Narayan. He got down from the bedstead, lifted her up by her hands, and placing his cooling hands on her face, smoothed the scattered hair on her head. Lord Krishna dried the wet breasts of Rukmini ji with his hand. Understanding the seriousness of Rukmini's love for him, he embraced her to his chest.
The Supreme Personality is expert in putting a thing reasonably for one's understanding, and thus he tried to retract all that he had said before. He is the only resort for all devotees, and so he knows very well how to satisfy his pure devotees. Krishna understood that Rukmini could not follow the statements he had made in a joking way. To counteract her confusion, he spoke as follows: My dear daughter of King Vidarbha, my dear Rukmini, please do not misunderstand me. Don't be unkind to me like this. I know that you are sincerely and seriously attracted to me. You are my eternal companion. The words which have affected you so much are not factual. I wanted to irritate you a bit, and I was expecting you to make counter answers to those joking words. Unfortunately, you have taken them seriously. I am very sorry for it. I expected that Your red lips would tremble in anger when you heard my statements, and that you would chastise me with many words. Oh, perfection of love! I never expected that your condition would be like this. I expected that you would cast your blinking glances upon me in a retaliation, and that I would thus be able to see your beautiful face in that angry mood. My dear beautiful wife, you know that because we are householders, we are always busy in many household affairs and launch for a time when we can enjoy some joking words between us. That is our ultimate gain in household life. Actually, householder works very hard day and night, but all fatigue of the day's labor is minimized as soon as they meet, husband and wife together, and enjoy life in many ways. Lord Krishna wanted to exhibit himself as being like an ordinary householder who delight himself by exchanging joking words with his wife. He therefore repeatedly requested Rukmini not to take those words very seriously.
In this way, when Lord Krishna pacified Rukmini by his sweet words, she could understand that what he had formerly said was not actually meant seriously but was spoken to evoke some joking pleasure between themselves. She was therefore pacified by hearing the words of Krishna. Gradually, she was freed from all fear of separation from him, and she began to look at his face very cheerfully with her naturally smiling face. She said, "My dear lotus-eyed Lord, your statement that we are not a fit combination is completely right. It is not possible for me to come to an equal level with you, for you are the reservoir of all qualities, the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can I be a fit match for you? There is no possibility of comparison with you. You are the master of all greatness, the controller of the three worlds, and the object of worship for great demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva. As far as I am concerned, I am a product of the three modes of material nature, which impede the progressive advancement of devotional service. When and where can I be a fit match for you? My dear husband, you have rightly said that you have taken shelter in the water of the sea, as if you are afraid of the kings. But you are the kings of this material world. But who are the kings of this material world? I do not think that the so-called royal families are kings of the material world. The kings of the material world are the three modes of material nature, who are actually its controllers. You are situated in the core of everyone's heart, where you remain completely aloof from the touch of the three modes of material nature, and there is no doubt about it.
You say you always maintain enmity with the worldly kings, but who are the worldly kings? I think the worldly kings are the senses. They are most formidable and they control everyone. Certainly, you maintain enmity with these material senses. You are never under the control of the senses. Rather, you are the control of the senses. Rishikesha, my dear Lord, you have said that you are bereft of all royal power, and that is also correct. Not only are you bereft of material world supremacy, but even your servants, those who have some attachment to your lotus feet, also give up the material world supremacy, because they consider the material position to be the darkest region, which checks the progress of spiritual enlightenment. Your servants do not like material supremacy, so what to speak of you? My dear Lord, your statement that you do not act as an ordinary person with a particular aim in life is also perfectly correct. Even your great devotees and servants, known as great sages and saintly persons, remain in such a state that No one can get any clue to the aim of their lives. They are considered by the human society to be crazy and cynical. Their aim of life remains the mystery to the common human being. The lowest of mankind can know neither you nor your servant. A contaminated human being cannot even imagine the pastimes of you and your devotees. O unlimited one, when the activities and endeavors of your devotees remain a mystery to the common human being, how can they understand your motive and endeavor? All kinds of energies and opulences are engaged in your service, but still they are resting at your shelter.
You have described yourself as penniless, but this condition is not poverty. Since there is nothing in existence but you do not need to possess anything. You yourself are everything. Unlike others, you do not require to purchase anything extraneously. With you, all contrary things can be adjusted because you are absolute. You do not possess anything, but no one is richer than you. In the material world, no one can be rich without possessing. Since your leadership is absolute, you can adjust the contradiction of possessing nothing, but at the same time being the richest. In the Vedas, it is stated that although you have no material hands and legs, you accept everything offered in devotion by the devotees. You have no material eyes and ears, but still you can see and hear everything everywhere. Although you do not possess anything, the great demigods who accept prayers and worship from others come and worship you to solicit your mercy. How can you be categorized among the poor?
My dear Lord, you have also stated that the richest section of human society does not worship you. This is also correct, because persons who are puffed up with material possessions think of utilizing their property for sense gratification. When a poverty-stricken man becomes rich, he makes a program for sense gratification due to his ignorance of how to utilize his hard-earned money. Under the spell of external energy, he thinks that his money is properly employed in sense gratification, and thus he neglects to render you transcendental service. My dear Lord, you have stated that persons who possess nothing are very dear to you, renouncing everything. Your devotee wants to possess you only. I see, therefore, that a great sage like Narad Muni, who does not possess any material property, is still very dear to you, and such persons do not care for anything but your lordship.
My dear Lord, you have stated that a marriage between persons equal in social standing, beauty, riches, strength, influence, and renunciation can be a suitable match. But this status of life can be possible only by your grace. You are the supreme perfectional source of all opulences. Whatever opulent status one may have is all derived from you. As described in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi Asya Yataha, you are the supreme source from which everything emanates, the reservoir of all pleasures. Therefore, person endowed with knowledge desire only to achieve you and nothing else. To achieve your favor, they give up everything, even the transcendental realization of Brahman. You are the supreme ultimate goal of life. You are the reservoir of all interests of the living entities. Those who actually well motivated desire only you, and for this reason they give up everything to attain success. They therefore deserve to associate with you in the society of the servitors and serve in Krishna consciousness. One is not subjected to the pain and pleasures of material society, which functions according to sex attraction. Therefore, everyone, whether man or woman, should seek to be an associate in your society of servitor and served. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can excel you, nor can anyone come up to the full level with you. The perfect social system is that in which you remain in the center, being served as a supreme, and all others engaged in your servitors. In such a perfectly constructed society, everyone can remain eternally happy and blissful.
My Lord, you have stated that only the beggars praise your glories, and that is also perfectly correct. But who are those beggars? Those beggars are all exalted devotees, liberated personalities, and those in the renounced order of life. They are all great souls and devotees who have no other business than to glorify you. Such great souls forgive even the worst offenders. These so-called beggars execute their spiritual advancement in life, tolerating all tribulations in the material world. My dear husband, do not think that I accepted you as my husband out of my inexperience. Actually, I followed all these great souls. I followed the path of these great beggars and decided to surrender my life onto your lotus feet.
You have said that you are penniless, and that is correct, for you distribute yourself completely to these great souls and devotees. Knowing this fact perfectly well, I rejected even such great personalities as Lord Brahma and King Indra. My Lord, the great time factor acts under your direction only. The time factor is so great and powerful that within moments it can effect devastation anywhere within the creation. Considering all these factors, I thought Jarasan, Shishupal, and similar princes who wanted to marry me to be no more important than ordinary insects. My dear all-powerful son of Vasudeva, your statement that you have taken shelter within the water of the ocean out of fear of all the great princes is quite unsuitable, for my experience with you contradicts this. I have actually seen that you kidnapped me forcibly in the presence of all these princes. At the time of my marriage ceremony, simply by giving a jerk to the string of your bow, you very easily drove the others away and kindly gave me shelter at your lotus feet. I still remember vividly how you kidnapped me in the same way that a lion forcibly takes its share of hunted booty, driving away all small animals within the twinkling of an eye.
My dear lotus-eyed Lord, I cannot understand your statement that women and other persons who have taken shelter under your lotus feet pass their days only in merriment from their history of the world. We can see that the princes like Anga, Prathu, Bharata, Yayati and Gaya were all the great emperors of the world, and there were no competitors to their exaltation position. But in order to achieve the favor of your lotus feet, they renounced their exalted positions and entered the forest to practice penance and austerities. When they voluntarily accepted such a position, accepting your lotus feet as all in all? Does it mean that they were in lamentation and bereavement? My dear Lord, you have advised me that I can still select another from the princely order and divorce myself from your companionship. But my Lord, it is perfectly well known to me that you are reservoir of all good qualities. Great saintly persons like Narad Muni are always engaged simply in glorifying your transcendental characteristics. Someone who simply takes shelter
My dear Lord, you have advised me that I can. Someone who simply takes shelter of such a saintly person immediately becomes freed from all material contamination, and when comes in the direct contact with your service, the goddess of fortune agrees to bestow all her blessings. Under the circumstances, what woman who has once heard of you, your glories from authoritative sources, and has somehow or other relished the nectarian fragrance of your lotus feet, would be foolish enough to agree to marry someone of this material world, who is always afraid of death, disease, old age, and rebirth. I have therefore accepted your lotus feet, not without consideration, but after mature and deliberate decision. My dear Lord, you are the master of the three worlds. You can fulfill all the desires of all your devotees in this world and the next. Because you are the supreme soul of everyone, I have therefore selected you as my husband, considering you to be the only fit personality. You may throw me in any species of life according to the reaction of my fruitive activities, and I haven't the least concern for this. My only ambition is that I may always remain fast to your lotus feet. You can deliver your devotees from illusory material existence and are always prepared to distribute yourself to your devotees.
Since this chapter is a little bit long, so we're gonna end the reading today, and we're gonna pick up next time what we left. So we'd like to end our Krishna book reading with good gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, and we'd like to thank Prabhupada for allowing us to come here and read for him. So let us finish our reading by offering our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesa Sunyavari Pasacha Desatarine. And to each other, Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.